Let me ask you this. Are you living or just existing? If you're like most people, especially leaders, your days are full of meetings, decisions, responsibilities and goals. But how often do you stop and ask, is this actually the life I want to be living? In today's episode of the Leadership Project, we're joined by Bill Zujewski, former tech exec and founder of Good Life and the author of What's Your Life Score? What started as a simple spreadsheet, scoring himself at the end of each year, turned into a personal transformation, and now a powerful tool and framework to help others step out of autopilot and into an intentional life. Together we explore the 8 dimensions of life that Bill believes we all should measure, not to judge ourselves, but to reflect, to take stock, and to choose what matters most. This is not your typical leadership conversation. It's personal, it's vulnerable, and it might just change the way you think about success. So get ready to look in the mirror and maybe, just maybe, to reclaim the steering wheel of your own life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. We've got a special treat for you today. We're joined by Bill Zujewski. Bill is the founder and CEO of an organization called Good Life, and he's the author of a book called What's Your Life Score? And it's accompanied with an app that can help you measure your life and look for where you might improve. So it's going to be a very practical discussion. We're going to look in the mirror today. We're going to look at your life. We're going to think about where you're at and take some time to reflect and where you might focus so you can go on a pursuit of happiness. If you're not happy as a leader, you're not going to be creating the environment that is great for the rest of your team. So it is important for us to stop and reflect and look at ourselves in the mirror and take action around our life. So this is going to be a deep introspection today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from Bill and going on this journey with you. I'm going to be listening to Bill. I'll be doing the actions myself, the things that we come out of today's discussion, I'll be personally doing as well. So without any further ado, I want to give Bill the stage here. Bill, tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to write this book and develop this app and to help people to measure their life and take action.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Mick. I'd love to tell the story. I spent most of my life actually in corporate marketing, managing marketing departments for software companies, but always had an inkling to do my own thing and had this concept in the back of my mind that this might be an interesting concept to actually help people and build a company around. So it goes way back 20 years ago. The engineer and me at the end of each year would do a little Google spreadsheet and just assess, before New Year's resolutions, how I did last year in my health and fitness. How do I do with my net assets, my finances, my job? And I'd score myself 0 to 10. And it was a very useful exercise for me. I started using it with my kids. And then I'm like, I think there's something here. I think there's something around a personal scorecard, just like a company has a dashboard. And so about a year ago, launched a mobile app to do it. And then to complement it, I thought it would be great to help me kind of get my word out and brand out there to write this book about the concept of there's 2 scores in there, a Zen score and a life score. And it's pretty simple. And my tagline for the company is get good at life. And it's, we know life is hard. It's complex. A lot of people don't know what to do. And I hopefully I've given them here, almost like a playbook to design a life.
Yeah, really good, Bill. I hope that we're all out there trying to get good at life. However, sometimes we do find ourselves in almost like an autopilot mode where we're not a human being anymore. We're just a human going and wandering and meandering. So why do you think it's important for people to intentionally stop and take a closer look?
Yeah, it's interesting. And then, I've been studying this topic since my, early days of my career. When I say topic, I'm just saying happiness, fulfillment, and those concepts, because there's It's such a struggle to get there. And what I realized was that it makes you pause if you start self-reflecting on your life. Like most of our lives are reactive. We're just like, okay, got to get up, go to work, get the paycheck. But I'm a huge believer. I learned these concepts early on that you can kind of manifest things. If you have a vision of where you want to go and what you want to do, the things you do day to day, week to week, month to month, start to kind of help you kind of create that vision you have for yourself. So I am a huge believer that you can kind of pause, look at what you're doing in these 8 areas, which we'll get to, and design a life and then make decisions that create the life that you really want to have in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
So the key word that's ringing in my head when I hear this is the word intentionality, is to actually take control of your life and make intentional decisions instead of the autopilot, like I was saying. The curious thing for me, Bill, going through the book, it sounds like you had been doing this for a while in, like you said, in a spreadsheet before. But when you wrote this book and start doing it yourself, what did you learn about yourself, Bill?
Yeah, well, I definitely learned that I'm an engineer because everything I was doing, I was organizing around like frameworks and mind maps and things like that. And then I started to think about what I would do different if I had to give advice to people. And I think I would have spent more time, probably some of the friendships early on. So that was actually enlightening. And then the other epiphany I'm starting to have is starting a company is really hard. And I'm like questioning, can I actually maintain this notion of a balanced life and all the things I'm advocating for and still, put in the work that's required to start a company from scratch, right? So that's another thing I'm starting to think about.
Yeah, really good. I'm hearing a few things there, Bill. One is the realization of being an engineer, and engineers like to make sense of the world. So I can see that in you. Also, a recognition of what you're good at, and maybe things that maybe I'm not as good at, and that's fine as well. And then taking a deeper look at yourself, that and we're going to go into some of the content soon, and starting to realize that personal relationships are a huge part of having a good life. And then actually really, hang on a second, how many personal relationships do I have? And am I intentionally investing in those relationships? So what I'm trying to reflect back to you, Bill, is I'm glad that when you're doing the work, you're also looking in the mirror yourself and going, hey, hang on a second, do I do that? Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Right. No, for sure. The other thing that I struggle with, and I know the buzzword is imposter syndrome, but what I mean by that is like, I'm not Bill Gates or some, famous person. Who am I to tell others or suggest what a good life actually is? So at first I had some doubts and maybe not the confidence to do this. But then I started thinking about, well, wait a second. I've got 4 kids now who love me, who are in their 20s. I've launched them into the world, and they're so far so good. I have a couple homes. I have an amazing partner and wife, and I'm very happy. So maybe I do have some formula or wisdom here to share. So that was another thing that actually turned out to be fine, but at first it was a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, there's a couple of elements there as well, Bill. Yeah, so you're not Bill Gates, but that's completely fine. You're Bill Zujewski, and you're the best Bill Zujewski you can be, the best one out there, right? But also, there's a little bit I'm picking up there about the comparison syndrome. Is you don't have to compare yourself to Bill Gates. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone. You look at yourself and go, compare yourself to you. Compare yourself to the you that you would be proud to be. And can I share something from my life that would be meaningful to others? And that's what I see that you've done here. So what did you learn about happiness? You did a lot of research in this book. What did you learn about, I'm going to say, some of the misconceptions about what makes us happy?
Yeah, no, obviously And this differs around the world. But in the United States, there's no doubt of that. Wealth is the only real metric and indicator that people think of when they think of, is this person successful or not? Amazingly, I had dinner a couple of years ago with a head of people from Ireland, and she was new to the United States. And she's shocked at how centric we are around that wealth and career, and that in Ireland, a better indicator is how great of a father and family man, what you've done to raise your kids and family. That's a better measure of success. But one thing I've learned about happiness, though, and it's backed by science. In fact, there's a book, coincidentally, called Good Life by two Harvard professors who studied 3,000 families over 80 years, looking at what attributes of a person's life led to the most happiness, fulfillment, and longevity, and how long they lived. And it wasn't even close, Mick. It was relationships. In the end, in the last 10, 20, 30 years, it was like, who was your partner? Who was the family around you? Who were the friends around you? And that easily mapped to maybe 10 more years of living healthy than wealth and where you lived and diet. So to me, in fact, I have the two I's in Good Life. When this company makes it to the next level, I'm going to make a new logo where those two I's are actually two people, because I think relationships is probably the most important indicator and driver of happiness.
Yeah, really good, Bill. So what you're picking up here is around societal expectations. And how do we measure success? Do we measure success by the way society measures success, or are we measuring success by what really makes us happy? And I do encourage people listening to the show, if you research some of these happiness studies, whether, Harvard, Yale, Martin Seligman does incredible work in this space. If you research it, you'll be surprised that the indicator that we look at someone and go, oh, wow, look at them, they're so successful. That's not the indicators that end up in these studies to show that what really drives happiness. And in fact, it can be counterintuitive. So let's pick the wealth one. And you and I were talking about this before we started the show. The wealth one, there's never enough. There's never enough. Like, if beyond getting to the point where you can cover your basic needs, you can pay your bills and put food on the table and shelter over your head, wealth actually becomes addictive, and you're always striving for more and you're never happy with what you've got. And it drives comparison syndrome, and comparison is the thief of joy. So you start going, well, I'm earning this much, but the person next to me is earning 10K more than me. Now, if you had to pull the person aside and say, oh, wow, you're earning $100,000, are you happy with that? They might have said yes, until they found out the person next to them is getting 110,000. All of a sudden they're unhappy. So it's not money that's making us happy. It's not money, is it? Right?
No. There's a lot of reading I've done, and this is a big actually trend around the world. I think trying to become more mindful of yourself, right, and conscious of your thoughts and everything. But there's this primitive mind. There's this million years of evolution that where we're wired for some of these things, right, to want more. No matter what we have, we want more. We want to be the best in the group, the biggest in the group, the strongest, right? And then we have this whole ego that we've evolved, and sometimes that ego is our biggest nemesis. Telling us that same thing. We have to have what our neighbor has, and it compares what we have to what others have, and you've got to almost pause and think about, is that your ego talking or your true self? You really have to try to capture all the emotional primitive mind stuff, try to move to a kind of a higher mind that's more kinder, giving back to society, giving back to people, and things like that. So that's what I've tried to do now and been able to do a little bit.
All right, really good. So we've covered that wealth is not the answer, and material pursuits, because there's always a bigger car, a bigger house, there's always a bigger paycheck. And if we just keep on pursuing that, we'll never reach. In fact, the target gets even further away as we try to pursue those things. Okay, so let's get into what the indicators are. So I do encourage everyone to get a copy of the book and to get a copy of the app and start following some of these. I've done the Zen score myself. I haven't yet done the life score, but to follow these things, and you'll start seeing the indicators of where you could actually start to get good at life. But over to you, Bill. You've got a really great acronym here that can help us to look at where we should look. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I should tell everyone if I haven't already, I've been in marketing most of my career. So you have to try to create either a concept or some way, a mental anchor to remember things. And I came up with help grow. Now, when I started my little personal scorecard, the spreadsheet that I used, it didn't spell help grow, but I saw the letters were close. But actually, let me go through them. Help grow, the H in help for health, E for environment, L for leisure, P for purpose. So that's the help part. And then grow is around growth, the G, R relationships, O occupation, and W is wealth. And those are really the 8 major things that I try to pay attention to and make sure they're all aligned, that I'm not overly consumed in one area and jeopardizing the other areas, right? So those are the 8 categories.
Yeah, really good, Bill. And we're going to unpack it one at a time in a moment. But you used the word company scorecard before, and and in the book you talk about a personal balance scorecard. And what I'm hearing from you here, it's not about, wow, I scored 100 in health, but my leisure is 0, or I scored 20 on purpose, but it's okay because everything else is 100. To me, it's the balance that we're looking for here. So by looking through, then we can identify, okay, I'm a little bit lacking in the following categories. And if I want to be good at life, I need to be more balanced in those things, is what I'm taking away there.
Yeah. And just to be clear with the listeners, because a lot of people now, when I talk about this notion of balance, they jump right to the simpler model of work and non-work, like there's 2 worlds. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking actually about balance and alignment across all the most important aspects of a life, right? Your health, spending time on that, your home, making sure you have a home you enjoy, taking time, leisure, right? Taking time to have fun in life. What would life be without having some pleasure in it, right? And then having purpose. There's a spiritual part of life as well. And then the relationships part is so important. If you had, all this wealth, but no one to share it with, what's the point, if you don't have the relationships? And then, your career obviously pays the bills. So that's still important and gives you some fulfillment. And you do need some money around wealth. So when I talk about balance, I'm talking about across all those 8 categories. And what happens is if you ignore one or 2 or 3, it starts to spill over into causing issues and stress and anxiety in other parts of your life. So it's all interconnected.
Yeah, really good, Bill. Okay, so let's go through them relatively quickly on each one and give some indicators of what good would look like and what not so good would look like, and what people could do, maybe some actions if they look at this and they're listening to the show and they look in the mirror and go, yeah, right, that's not me, what they could do about it. So what does good health look like to you, Bill?
Sure. And the scores, actually, there's 2 scores. The Zen score, it takes a minute and it tells you how do you feel about your health, right? And that's one question and you score yourself 0 to 10. But then in the life score, it scores you about your actions and what you're doing. So it will go ahead and ask you a question, do you have a nutrient rich diet with whole foods and lean proteins? So what's your diet? Do you smoke? How much alcohol do you consume? Do you get at least 7 hours of sleep? Do you do cardio exercise at least 3 times a week? Do you hydrate regularly? Do you do some strength training, right? So those are the physical aspects. And then on mental aspects, it talks about, do you set boundaries? Do you do some mindfulness and self-reflection, right? So what I've tried to do is, I'm not telling people how to live their lives, but there's science and research that says you do these things, best practices, you'll have a healthier life. you'll have more energy, you'll live longer, you won't have, some of the chronic diseases that start with kind of your habits around what you eat and what you do. So people can debate that everyone's different, but I would debate that there is kind of a foundational playbook for having a healthy life.
All right, really, really good, Bill. So I'm going to share a few things as we go, all right? But I'm going to interject here with an important thing of the way I looked at it. And I picked this up from the book, and I hope I've done it the right way, by the way. But I picked this up as a thread through the book. When I was giving myself the scores, I was also coming from a place of gratitude, right? So I wasn't just focusing on what I don't have. I was focusing on being happy with what I do have. Not happy, grateful. Being grateful for what I do have instead of just focusing on what I don't have. So I'm going to give you my scores as we go through this and reflect on what I was thinking. So health was not great for me. I put myself as a 7. I could have easily put it as a 6, a 5, or a 4. But I am grateful that I'm not in hospital. I don't have a chronic illness. Am I happy with my level of fitness and my overall health? No, I've got a few problems, and I've been at the doctor recently and had a few things that I've had to check up. So, am I in physical fitness? No, but am I grateful that I am not chronically ill? Yes. So I gave myself a 7. How does that? Like, I'm trying to do this in real time with you. How does that sit with you in terms of the way I did it?
Yeah, no, that's perfect, right? So a 7 is acceptable. It's funny when people they can't help but go to the grading system, right? I mean, that's what we're taught. So at least in the U.S., your scores in the 70s, and you're giving yourself a C. So that's a indicator to in the app and in the book that you're doing okay, but there's room for improvement. If you were a 3 or 4, like then you'd be saying to yourself, "Oh my gosh." Like you're scared you might die or have a heart attack, or you don't have the energy or capability to do things you want in life. So, that would probably have come across like a 2 or 3. A 7 says there's no reason to panic. But, I think I gave myself a 6, and I'm pretty healthy. But I know it's such an important part of life that I need to lose, the 10, 15 pounds and not be huffing and puffing when I'm walking upstairs. So I'm not happy. Even though I'm grateful, I'm a pretty healthy guy in person, I have room to work with there.
Yeah, good. And this is where I'm going to go with this. This is going to be one of the indicators I'm going to work on after having done this exercise, Bill. But it's the same kind of thing. I want to be healthy so I can do the things that I enjoy with my kids, with my wife, with my friends, etc. If you're not healthy, it impacts your ability to do some of the other categories that we're going to talk about. Yeah, really good.
It's a coincidence, but it's H is the first letter. It all starts. You can't do anything else unless you're up and out of bed and healthy and, living.
Nice. All right. Okay, so E is environment. What does a good environment look like to you, Bill?
Yeah. And to me, that's the home. And I take pride in my home. But when I talk about here is having somewhere you can relax, you can recharge, you can entertain friends to come over. Like you spend a big chunk of your life at home, right? And so I know for my wife and I, we just built a house because the sun was on the wrong side. Our house was so dark. We were in the middle of the woods. We just needed a new location where we had more light in our life and a view. So one of our goals, and I'm a big believer, you can design the life you want. We've been looking for 20 years and saving towards, finding the lot and building the house that would give us a place we would, call home for the rest of our lives because it's such an important part of life. And then where it's located, the weather, the commute, access to health. Can you go out for a walk and, parks, so your home is a critical aspect of whether you're going to be happy or not.
Yeah, really good, Bill. All right, so here we go again. I'm going to show you, I scored myself an 8 here. I'm grateful for what I have, but then I'm also aware of when environment impacts me. So let me give some examples here. I'm going to give some workplace and some home examples. Really silly one. I'd say 9 times out of 10, I love my home and my family and everything that we've got around here. And then there's the occasional time where I'll walk into the living room and realize, I didn't fold the laundry. The laundry is still sitting there, kind of thing. And it's kind of what could have been I'm going to, relax now, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of, no, I can't relax because I didn't fold the laundry kind of situation. But I'm still grateful that I've got a nice house with a roof over my head and I've got a comfortable life. When it comes to the commute, I found that one really interesting when I was reading the book. I can tell you when I drive my car to work and where I live and where I go to work, the car traffic is horrendous. It can take me up to 2 hours and it is extremely stressful. So what do? I take an intentional action. When I catch the train, I love the commute. I look out the window and watch the world go past. Or if I ride my bike, even better, because then I'm working on my health as well, I enjoy the commute. And then the same thing in the workplace. And this is a big one for leaders. We want to create an environment where people want to come to work, right? So it's and now I'm talking the physical environment, but also the mental environment, that it's not a toxic place, that it's a place where people treat each other well and treat each other with respect. So the environment one, I did give myself an 8. I think I've got it in good stead, but you can still see there where I can take some intentional actions to avoid the things that would make it worse. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, 100%. And so let me tell you how this would have played out in my app. So you would have gave yourself an 8 in your Zen score, how you feel about, your environment. But if you went in and then and did the life score assessment, there's 10 questions around the home environment. And one of the questions is, rate yourself 0 to 10. In this question, I maintain a clean, clutter-free, and organized home environment, right? And if you didn't, it'd be a wake-up call that some of that is, creating some overhead of thinking about, all the things you have to do around the house before you can relax. And then the other question, one of the other 2 of the 10 questions was, my commute or work setup supports balance and minimizes stress, right? So you probably would have scored yourself low there. And again, that would have been telling you maybe you got to think about changing my commute or doing something on it. But that it was an indicator that you weren't, doing the best in that area.
Yeah, really good, Bill. Okay, excellent. So L is leisure, or leisure for you, and pronunciations are interesting. So leisure or leisure. So yeah, tell us, what do you think are the key things here of where people get it right, and here where people just get it wrong when it comes to leisure?
Yeah. So I think people think of leisure as maybe oversimplified as I take vacation, right? There's 10 areas in your life score for leisure that I've identified. It starts with you having some kind of hobby or interest, whether it's painting or gardening or playing an instrument, and then having outdoor activities, having some mindfulness and rest, socializing with friends, doing some digital detox, listening to music, maybe doing some self-care or spa, and then having fun and playing and doing some socialization. Like those are the 10 questions around leisure. And people who do those kinds of things seem to be fresher, happier, right? More optimistic, and really having some pleasure in their life to balance the times where they're working hard. It's the fruit for the labor, right?
Yeah, really good. So I'm going to be open here and say I gave myself a 9 now. The word is now. I can look at parts of my life where this would have been a 1 or 2, Bill. Seriously. Workaholic tendencies, and, I would have scored, like, to come back to the word balance, I would have scored big scores in other areas, and this would have been really low at different parts of my life. But now I do intentionally carve out time. I've now, I play golf, I play tennis, I spend quality time with my family. And when I'm spending time with my son, I put my phone away and I am completely present with him and get completely mindful and in the moment. And that's when the richness of that experience comes, instead of being distracted, etc. And that's going to impact some of the other
Yeah, I can tell you a quick story, and believe me, I count my blessings that I'm so grateful I was able to do this. But a couple of my companies have been acquired twice by Oracle. Actually, in 2016, PTC acquired Exida, and I was CMO there. And I actually took a whole year and a half off, Mick. I took a sabbatical, and my kids were in middle school, two in high school. I coached AAU basketball, baseball. It was like a retirement in the middle of my career. And my rationale, it was, geez, I still have all this energy and my kids at home. When I'm retired, it's just going to be me. I could work hard then. So I did end up going back because I was kind of warned that, because I always intended to go back, but that if I stayed too far, into my sabbatical, that people would not hire me because they think there'd be a stigma that I lost the fire to, work. So I ended up, ending that. But it was a fun time.
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. So very good on leisure. Let's make sure that we are carving out time and we're doing that. All right. All right. So
Got to hit all the letters. Yes.
yeah, exactly. All right, let's get to purpose. Tell us about we've discussed this on the show a lot, but I want to hear from you, Bill. Tell us about the power of purpose.
Yeah, and purpose will change through your life cycle of your life, right? In your 20s, there's nothing wrong with actually career being your purpose. You've got to build a foundation to build a life around and get money home. I think as you become a leader, the company you're creating, it's fine for that to become, your purpose. Again, you're creating jobs for people, so that becomes an interesting purpose. For me, one of the biggest joys and proud points for me is that time where I was building my family and raising 4 kids. That got me out of bed when, at 6 a.m., knowing that I wanted to pay for college for all of them. I wanted to take them on vacations every year. And my family gave me amazing purpose. And now I'm in a position where I think my purpose is, grander. Like, boy, I've learned so much. Life is so hard. I mean, how could I help more and more people with dealing with the complexity and difficulties of life and trying to do it that way? So there's a lot of elements, but I'm a big believer in, having some purpose that drives you is super healthy and super motivating.
Yeah, really good, Bill. And I'm going to say here, I scored myself a 10 here. I'm a very purpose-driven person. I did the work. To work out, well, one of my purposes, I have 3, but one of my purposes dawned on me through a realization 2005. So quite almost 20 years ago, it was a very distinct activity that led to that. And then the rest, I've done the work to go, okay, what does bring me joy? Like, what are the things that I enjoy, but how is it impactful on the world and impactful for other human beings? And purpose is generally at the bottom, at the service of other human beings, but the intersection of something that you're good at, something that you enjoy doing, but it means something. It means something to others and helping others. So I did give myself a 10 here. For the audience, we have covered this on the show before, but I encourage you, if you're still struggling with purpose, there are exercises that you can do. You can look at the work of Zach Mercurio as examples to go and find your purpose. There is ways. If you're feeling lost, this is one that you can invest in. All right, tell me about growth.
So growth is, I think, again, it's ingrained in being a human, right? If we're not growing, we're dying. And some of the happiest and most successful people are lifelong learners. And I've tried to instill that in my kids. I've been pretty lucky. It's just natural. We just love learning, consuming knowledge. And I think another part of human nature is just being better, being the best self person we could. So I'm always trying to extend myself, challenge myself, learn as much as I can. And then I have a little secret, so a little hack, not a hack, but a little guiding principle in my life that I think is one of the simplest definitions of happiness for me is if I set goals and are making progress, to me, progress equals happiness. I feel the best when a day goes by and I've done something. When I get to bed and I look back and I wasted a day, I feel like nauseous and miserable. Like, oh my God, I made no progress on anything. So I think progress is super important part of life.
Yeah, I like this. And I can see how progress and growth are going hand in hand. Absolutely. On this one, I scored myself a 10 as well. I study every day. I study psychology. I'm an engineer as well, Bill. And why I now study psychology, I certainly didn't when I was younger, is I try to make rational sense of an sometimes irrational world. So I study psychology every day. And the other little gift I have is that I get to do this podcast. And by the time this episode goes to air, we'll be up to episode 270 something. I get to sit down in front of people like Bill Zujewski and learn wonderful things. So I feel very blessed when it comes to growth. Interesting around the progress. I don't know that I've taken that into account when I've given myself a high score. So yeah, the progress is one for me to maybe take a look at. For the audience, ask yourself that. When was the last time, and some of you probably do this all the time, but ask yourself the hard question, look yourself in the mirror and go, when was the last time you invested in your own growth? When was the last time you learned something new intentionally? And how are you measuring your progress? So I think this is one for all of us to look at, the growth. All right, R for relationships, Bill. Tell us what this looks like and why is it important?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about all the studies that how it's one of the best correlations, your relationships to whether you're going to be happy and healthy. But people think they just happenstance. And you actually have to understand what a good relationship takes and invest in building those relationships. And I think I mentioned this to you, like if you didn't have other people to share everything in your life, your joy, your assets, your home, your vacations with, like what would be the purpose of life alone on an island, right? So I think relationships is naturally important. But in my life score, the questions are, there's like 15 of them. There's around effective communication. I communicate honestly and openly, right? Empathy. I show empathy and understand when to put others' needs first, right? I spend quality time with my family and friends with important people, right? I express love regularly, right? I have a social circle of friends I can relax with. I'm very grateful and celebrate, with other people. And so, there's, like I said, that's just off the top of my head, some of them, but there's a nice list of, like, I guess, best practices to improve the relationships you have in your life around you.
So yeah, you're right. The studies keep on showing this one time and time again. The richness of our relationships is actually what is the bigger indicator of happiness than anything else. And if we're not investing that time, it's going to be at our detriment for sure. The gratitude for other human beings, the service of other human beings, the connection with other human beings is where all this lives. Now, here is one that I'm going to have to rescore this, Bill, to be honest. So when I did it, I first gave myself a 10, and that was purely based on the relationship with my wife, which is an amazing one that I'm grateful for every single day. But when I look deeper and I listen to you today, I've let slip the personal relationships of long-standing friends that I haven't spoken to in a long time. And those friendships are strong enough that I know that if I rang them today, that we would reconnect in an instant. But the truth is I've unintentionally let those slip. So I need to take an intentional action to reach out to those people and say hello and check in, how you doing, and show them that I care for them. And so this will be an action that I'll take as a result of today's conversation. So
I'm glad I had a little bit of impact on you, Mick, right? That's awesome. A lot of times people, when they feel like stuck or, disconnected, revisiting some of the friendships they have can kind of remind them of the important things of life and get them out of that rut that they're in. So there's also an expression, you are who your friends are, right? So it really is true. I look closely at my 4 kids' circles and make sure they're in the right circle, because that circle of people will have a huge influence in defining who they are.
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. Very good. So let's go on to O is for occupation. Where does occupation come in, Bill?
Yeah, well, first of all, I found my ambition, manageable and sometimes very fulfilling. When you're marketing and you hit your numbers, or when I was in sales and I closed a new customer. I mean, maybe it's the human nature of competing and winning. I played team sports, and that spilled over into the career choices I made. But it's also where you meet people. It's also where you spend so much time of your life. You want to be around people you like, you get along with, who are kind. So you have to pay attention to the job you choose. Are you being paid fairly? Have you found an occupation that pays the bills and allows you to do what you want to do in life in terms of work-life balance? So occupation may not be the most important, but it's pretty high up there, and it's a pretty important aspect of life that you need to self-reflect around. Are you at the right company? Are you in the right career? And do you have the right manager? All those things you've got to do a checkpoint.
Yeah, really good, Bill. So I gave myself an 8 on this one. I feel very lucky. I get to do work where I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel respected. It's meaningful work to me. So I gave myself an 8, but I didn't give myself a 10. And I'll explain why. Every job has its frustrations, first of all, but that's not what it was. What I gave myself less than 10 was because of purpose alignment, to make sure that what we do is aligned to our purpose. And where I find why I didn't give myself a 10 is where you end up in elements of bureaucracy, that there are elements of churn in your job that aren't connected to your purpose. And I think if we can get rid of some of those inefficiencies, you'd go home feeling more proud that what you did today was towards achieving that purpose and towards those goals. So I didn't give myself a perfect score, but I feel very lucky in occupation. I always have.
Yeah, and these scores, how you feel about these areas do change, year to year, even month to month, or even day to day sometimes. Like I have times where, oh my God, I'm so lucky to have the freedom to be running my own company. But then I have days or weeks where, like, oh my gosh, I have no income coming in for almost a year now trying to build this company. And then what if I fail? I've done so much good. And then what if my legacy is actually a company that doesn't make it? So there's challenges even to, in the occupation that never goes away, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. Okay, so once again, people, you can reflect on this. Have a think about, in your occupation, if you don't give yourself a high score here, what would you do differently? And that doesn't mean leave the job. It means start with where you're at and think about, well, what little changes could you make where your occupation could be something that has a higher score? All right. And the final one is wealth. And you put it last on purpose. I know this, but it is important that we at least have enough money to meet needs, right? To put food on the table and put roof over the head. So tell us more about wealth.
Right, right. So clearly, like you said, you want to have some sort of income that allows you to live the life have a vacation, pay the bills, have a home you're comfortable in. But a lot of the strife and tension and divorces are fights over money. And a lot of that has to do with this materialistic world and overspending, or the ego. I think one of my questions is, I refrain from impulse buying, practice mindful spending, and avoid expensive brand purchases driven by my ego, right? So that would be like buying the $3,000, Gucci or Prada bag or something, or right there's some stuff, or trying to keep up with the Joneses and spending half your paycheck on your monthly mortgage to pay for your home. Oh my gosh, you just created a stressful life for yourself, where you could have downsized and been just as happy in a smaller home, and not created all this tension. So in the wealth score, I've documented, pay your credit card off every month, save 10%, make sure your mortgage is less than 25% of your monthly pay, have a balanced portfolio, start saving for retirement, have a budget, spend, be frugal, all the best practices that people who have their financial house in order go through and do.
You're really good, Bill. So I gave myself a 7 here, and the reason why it's not a 10 is I don't always make smart decisions with my money. I can stick my hand up on that one. So that's where I need to do a bit of work, make smarter decisions. But the reason why the score is so high now to go the other way is I'm grateful for what I have instead of being worried about what I don't have. Yeah, and I feel lucky. I feel lucky that I don't have to go live paycheck to paycheck. I have a balanced view on the finances, but I still don't always make the smartest decisions.
I have a story that I love telling, and it's, I lost my parents now both, but, they came over. I was the firstborn, and they came over in the 60s from Poland, and my father was a mechanic, and my mom raised 5 kids. And I didn't know it at the time. I mean, we had a happy household. Every weekend, Sunday dinner, friends over. We were living paycheck to paycheck. Like, my father was scrambling, taking on extra jobs to just make sure he hit the mortgage payment. None of that was evident to me till I was like 20, 30, 40 years old, paying my own mortgage. So you can be happy without a wealth. And I just saw it in my household. And to me, it was a proof point, that belief.
Yeah, really good, Bill. All right, so I'm going to bring us towards a close now, and I'll head towards our rapid round. So I'm going to reflect again to everyone and hold up, for those that are watching on the video, hold up the book again. Watch your life score. And this is about getting your own life in order so you can be a better leader, right? And you can help others then as well. If you get some of these categories in control, then you're in a position to help your team and your loved ones, etc., to work on it as well. So the help grow: health, environment, leisure, purpose, growth, relationships, occupation, wealth. Have you got these things in balance? And do the score. Do the score in the app, and it will tell you from the scores you give. You go, oh, here we go. I need to work a little bit more on health, or I need to carve out time for more leisure, or I need to reach out and connect with more people. My friends, I haven't connected with them for a while. It's going to give you some steers on where you could act.
And by the way, Mick, happy employees, for the leaders and executives out there, are more productive, less likely to leave their job. So all these things, and I hate to bring it up, but they actually have strong benefits for your company culture.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. All right. And then if you want to take it a bit further, you can do the life score element as well, not just the Zen score. And it'll help you with some more targeted questions on where you might focus your energy to bring more balance in your life. And yeah, happiness is not the pursuit of happiness. It's not the pursuit of wealth. It's the happiness of the pursuit. It's about growing every day. So you won't do these scores just once. You'd go back and see how you progress as you go along.
Progress. There you go. You said it. The key to happiness.
All right. Brilliant, Bill. I've loved this. I'm going to personally put these things in action, and I'm encouraging the audience to do so as well. Let's go to our rapid round. These are the same 4 questions we ask all of our guests, Bill. So firstly, what's the one thing you know now, Bill Zujewski, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Yeah. And again, I'm grateful for my relationships with my kids, my wife, and I have good friends. But, I sometimes am jealous, and I shouldn't be, of some of these best friends that people have. And I look back, I probably didn't invest enough, building those super, super close relationships with people earlier in life. It's one of those things that no one ever actually taught me. You don't learn it in school. You actually have to invest to be a good friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well said, sir. All right. Now, always a curious question for authors. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I don't, I'm sad to say I read a lot of nonfiction. I'll give you 2. I'll give you one fiction. Jeffrey Archer wrote this book called Cain and Abel, and just talked about the dichotomy of a overly ambitious, greedy son versus a more empathetic son. And how their life's played out. And then I do like the tipping point of Malcolm Gladwell. A lot of Malcolm Gladwell stuff is very, very well done.
Yeah. All right. Very good and good suggestions. Now, I feel guilty asking you this question because the book is full of impactful quotes. What's your favorite quote?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you one that wasn't in the book, so it's a bonus. Yeah, it's a bonus, and it's one I picked up a couple of years ago, and from Warren Buffett. So someone asked him about what he would, how he would qualify a good life, and a successful life, and he says, it's simple: the number of people that love you in the end. That's it, right? That to him, that was the KPI of life. That said to him whether you led a good life or not, and it was a good reflection. And I thought that was a great way to look at life.
Yeah, and what a great way to summarize what we've been talking about in today's discussion as well, Bill. All right, and finally, how do people find you? There's going to be people listening to this. Hopefully, they've been scoring themselves a little bit in their head as they go. But how do they find the book? How do they find the app? How do they find you, Bill?
Yeah, well, just screenshot this right now if you're watching, because Zujewski is the key. There's not many of them. So if you just Google Bill Zujewski, I'm the only one. But go to goodlife.com, with 2 I's. That's you'll see my story, my book, my software, and all that. LinkedIn, same thing. Connect with me. I love connecting people. DM me. And then if you want to email me, bill@goodlife.com. And if you go to Amazon and search on Zujewski, there's only one book written. What's Your Life Score on Amazon? So that's the best way to get a hold of me.
All right. Wonderful, Bill. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom for us today and your very practical book and your practical app. It really is something that's easy for us all to do, but it's meaningful. It's easy, but meaningful. I encourage everyone to do so. Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing it with us today. And congratulations on the success of getting it out there and what you're doing, not just to help yourself, but to help others to get their life in order and to be good at life.
That's my tagline. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate it.
What an amazing conversation with Bill Zujewski. What if life really did come with a scorecard? Not to rank you, but to remind you, to nudge you to pause, to help you live with intention instead of inertia. Today, Bill gave us more than a framework. He gave us permission. Permission to stop running on autopilot. Permission to check in with ourselves. Permission to design the life we want before it designs us. So here's your reflection prompt for today. What's your life score? In health, in purpose, in joy? And what's one small action you could take today to improve it? If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who's ready to reflect too. You never know who might be silently struggling behind their leadership title. And don't forget to check out Bill's book and the Good Life app. They're both great companions on the journey back to yourself. In the next episode, we're going to be joined by Jonathan Stutz, who talks us about intentional actions for inclusive leadership. Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mickspears.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.